the Bantustans in South Africa. So, of course, the hard question today, as we are challenging minds, is about issues concerning about why the Bantustans were created in South Africa. We are saying today, separate homes for the Africans. Separate homes for the Africans. So we need to understand, separate homes were created in Transkei, Ciskei, Ndebele, etc. They were semi-independent political units established for the Africans. We believe that the Bantustans were semi-independent political units established for the Africans. So we need to know the key reasons why the Bantustans were created. Number one, we are saying to create white domination. We believe by this time to create and promote white dominance. In this kind of arrangement, the whites in South Africa wanted to dominate each and everything. That's why they created Bantustans. Because Africans were supposed to be in separate camps. Separate what? Camps. And they were not supposed to mix with the whites. Another one, we are saying to ensure white enslavement of the Africans. Another reason why the Bantustans were created was to ensure white enslavement of the Africans. The whites wanted to enslave the Africans. That's why the Bantustans were what? Created. To make Africans as the slaves. Another one, to promote separate development of Africans and whites. We believe by this time, the whites created Bantustans to create separate development. In other words, white areas had to be more developed than the blacker areas. Another one, to promote separate development, then to effect isolation of Africans for the benefit of the whites. In other words, the Bantustans were created to isolate Africans. In this kind of arrangement, Africans had to be what? Isolated. No one was supposed to mix with Africans. Another one, to weaken African nationalism. We are like saying today, African nationalism meant love one's country. So they wanted to weaken African nationalism. They were supposed to be in the Bantustans, and they were not supposed to move from one area to another. This could mean that they could not get information about fighting for their independence. To ensure that the whites own land and other mineralized areas in South Africa. Another key aspect, they wanted the whites to own land and other mineralized areas in South Africa. The mineral areas had to be owned by the whites. Issues concerning about gold and diamond, I can tell you this was real exploitation. To avoid the competition between Africans and whites over employment opportunities, we believe by this time competition had to be avoided. This meant that Africans were not supposed to compete with the whites. That's why they were put in the Bantustans. Separate homes. You are not supposed to move from the Bantustans. Another one, we are saying to ensure social discrimination in education, health, and recreation services. We believe by this time, social discrimination had to be ensured in education. The whites were to attain great education, and Africans were to attain low levels of education. To divide and rule the Africans. In other words, they wanted to divide and rule the Africans. Where in this kind of arrangement, those Africans that cooperated with the whites were favored at one time. Those who were not cooperating were not what? Favored. So divide and rule meant that it was not easy for the Africans to join hands together and challenge which group? challenge the whites. Another one, another key aspect, to disarm Africans completely. I can say Africans had to be disarmed completely. Disarming meant in this kind of arrangement, Africans were not supposed to have military what? Equipment. Because they feared if they had military equipment, they could fight and challenge the whites. Another one, to prevent criticism from the outside world. The whites wanted the outside world to believe that Africans were independent, because in the Bantustans they had their own leaders. So this was a strategy to blindfold Africans and the world that Africans were independent. Because in the Bantustans they had their own leaders. But in reality, they were not what? Independent. Another one, to develop a system which was too local for the civil and political rights to be exercised. In other words, in the Bantustans, Africans had to have their own leaders who were their fellow Africans. So this was done to develop a system which was local. Then to act as a dumping ground for the outdated items and unproductive labor from the white-dominated areas. Let me tell you, in this kind of arrangement, outdated items had to be sold to the Africans in where? In the Bantustans. Those things that were expired had to be given to Africans in the Bantustans. That's why the Bantustans were created in South Africa. So in this kind of arrangement, you must know the key reasons why the Bantustans were